Hey guys, I'm Danny.
And I'm EJ, and this is the Your Living Proof podcast,
where we talk about addiction and how it affects the family, from the brutal to the beautiful and everything in between. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Your Living Proof podcast. We're so excited to be with you guys today. This is episode 92.
And this is take 7.
Take 7, we got in an argument in the podcast booth. It's the best place for it to happen. Awkward silence.
That's it.
She was just telling me what to do, right? Every good woman's going to put you in check and tell you what to do.
And unfortunately for Danny, that has to happen multiple times a day.
Oh my.
His poor mother. She's probably so relieved that she doesn't have to do it anymore.
This is take 7, but you know what? Usually we walk in here and we just hit record and there's never take 2.
That's true.
This is what it is. But we're safe. There's padded walls in here. Everybody's going to be okay. Despite her criticizing me where I needed to be and being told where putting me in check, something amazing happened this week. She blessed our home, as she does in so many ways, with this beautiful Christmas tree. So where are we at? What is today? November
17th, 18th.
We're recording. It's the 18th, and our Christmas tree is up.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's a Jesus tree.
Yeah, I can't go mid. Like, I can't go from Halloween to like fallish Thanksgiving, however people decorate for that. I just have to go straight from skeletons and skulls to Christmas.
Well, a couple of years ago, we invested in a nice tree, finally. So I'm just like, well, thing cost us an arm and a leg, so might as well get it up and enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's awesome to be able to enjoy it for a long time. And then when you take it down, you're like, good, I'm glad it's down. Like, I'm over it now.
We're really glad you guys are here with us. We hope you loved the last episode, which talks about how to, having a plan in place for the holidays, especially when you have a loved one in active addiction or early recovery. It is essential. In our groups the last couple of weeks, that's one of the subjects we continue to talk about is everybody discussing, working through the difficulties surrounding the holidays with an addicted loved one. I mean, it's hard throughout the year period, but the holidays make it really complicated. So I hope you enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, and if you did enjoy it, maybe when you're with your family, because that's what the holidays do, is they bring us all together, share it. Because my heavens, it's interesting because, as Danny just said, he's been talking about it a lot in his groups, and it's something that will consistently be for the next several weeks a difficult thing for everyone around us. The holidays are amazing. They bring so much joy, but they also bring a lot of things to us that we most of the year get to avoid or don't have to confront as often. And then boom, the holidays come and everybody's always together and there's no avoiding it.
Well, and the thing about an addicted loved one, which we addressed in the podcast, is not only do you bring a person consuming poisons who's been negatively affected, there's lots of different dynamics because everyone in the family has been affected one way or another. So hope you enjoyed it. Let's just get right into it. There's a lot we could talk about. I get easily distracted, which is, again, why she has an important role in my life. Grabbing the reins and getting us back on track. So it is episode 92. I just wanted to start off by telling you the topic today is a really powerful one. I got certified as an interventionist. That was the line of work to go do, and I did for a long time and was really good at it for years, performing interventions with other families. But today we're going to talk about why interventions are not effective, or better said, why interventions don't work.
Yeah, and I would say this topic is kind of controversial, even because I think so many people are just like, no, that's how it's done. Like,
let's get into that.
So I want to just say, take a look around you and note all of the capable, loving, educated families in your neighborhood, at your schools, all the things. And ask yourself, these people, your sister, your next door neighbor who has a child or a spouse that's addicted, they would do whatever it takes to save their loved one from what they're going through. Like, they would literally put themselves at risk if that would solve the problem, right? We all know this. We know these people. They're amazing families. Then try something.
Well, they're all amazing families, but none of them have success. So
right, they don't know what to do.
Correct.
So what do? What you should do, because it's kind of a fun little experiment. Type in how to help my addicted spouse into your Google search bar. I double dog dare you to do it. Or how to help my addicted son. And see what results populate, because it is dismal. You will get a lot of advice like be understanding, be caring.
There's government websites that'll take
Here's
the
some
top,
detox resources.
The top 2 or 3 will be different government agencies, the Center for Disease Control and whatnot, addicted.org. And then there'll be some facilities that are targeted for your loved one, but nothing for you.
Yeah. So the result is you have thousands, if not tens of thousands, incredible families who are literally unraveling at the seams while trying to piece something together, some idea, some Band-Aid, some way to solve this for their loved one, which means we all know every person in that scenario loses. Everyone.
That's why we're here to serve the family. It's an approach that not enough people are taking. We actually had a retreat recently with a bunch of people in our community, and one of the dads is like, why are we pioneering the best way to help people? Now, again, I'm going to get the elephant out of the room right now. Not everyone in addiction has a family that's capable. Not everyone in addiction has a family that can help, wants to help, has the means to help. A lot of them do come from dysfunctional, abusive homes and families. Let's just address that. We're not speaking to them. We're speaking to you, to those families out there. Are we all dysfunctional in our own way? Of course.
Sure.
But great, good families wanting to help.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that we're here to serve those families, and that we're going to dive into that today. Like, we're going to talk about why Danny stopped doing interventions and started doing what we're doing. And I would just like it to be known for anybody that's wondering that we believe, this is our belief, that families are not only the fundamental unit of society, but they are the solution to the addiction epidemic.
They are, and we're going to convince you of that eventually.
Just kidding. If you don't already believe it, you will.
Hey, so read some messages that we get.
So here's a common message that we get. My daughter is using drugs and it's ruining our family. I've tried to talk to her and she just gets more and more mad. And we actually now just coexist. We don't even talk anymore. We have nothing to say. What should I do? Another one is like, my spouse is addicted to alcohol or porn. And even after they sought treatment, they started using it again. It's killing me and it's ruining our family. And I don't know what to do. Those are, multiple times a day.
I'm sure it resonates with anyone listening in. It's something very similar to how you felt, a question that you've had. And for millions, for decades, millions of families have been in your exact situation for decades. And for decades, the approach was terrible. I almost think back to when I was young, when my parents were young, especially. We hadn't been educated enough as people, right? Like even back in the day when I was young and you could smoke in certain places. Remember that? Like airplanes had ashtrays on.
Yeah.
Come on. Like over time we've gotten smarter and we've learned, right?
Sure.
Most often from our mistakes. But for decades, millions of families faced these difficult situations and they did nothing about it. They did nothing about it.
Yeah, it was almost like, hey, we all just knew we had this uncle that was an alcoholic.
Yep.
Just the way it was.
Just the way it was. So over time, people became smarter. There were studies done. There was some scientific proof and research done to understand addiction. And it wasn't even that long ago that they came to realize that this was actually a disease, that over time, these poisons neurologically rewire a person's brain and they have a fatal illness. So we got better. We got smarter. We started approaching this differently. There were resources involved. Eventually, and it wasn't even that many years ago, insurance got involved and recognized it as a disease, which fueled a lot more options, facilities opening up because there was means to pay for it. So we've gotten better. The typical approach for families from when this occurred was doing an intervention. Okay,
Classic.
I'm sure most of you have heard this before. There's actually, it was in 2005, aired the first season of Intervention. I'd be willing to bet most of you have heard of that. A lot of you have maybe watched several episodes. They've had hundreds, if not thousands of episodes over 20 years. It's one of the most, if not most popular standing show on A&E. And that's the approach. Now, there were a lot of people that had interventions performed on them in the show, and they got people to go try and get help. And so although effective for that event, it was not a solution.
Well, I like that you're saying that it's an event.
It's an event, and we're going to get into that. So with that said, and I wrote down some notes today so I don't go off subject too much. No one will ever escape the death grip of addiction unless someone or something intervenes. I hope you've heard me say that a couple of times, if not lots. In our groups, I share that with people over and over when they first join the program or they're looking to join the program. There are 3 things that intervene with anyone. Death, for far too many. You can go look it up, watch the news. It is one of the leading causes of death for individuals 18 to 45. It is number 1, is overdose to fentanyl, singular drug. But in the top 5, it's overdose to alcohol, accident-related accidents, or other drug overdose. So death intervenes. The second one is institutions. And what you could summarize that as hospitals, judges, the courts, police, going to the hospital, right? Institutions.
Jail.
And then the last one, the third one, is you. One of those 3 things has to intervene. Death, institutions, or you. And I know it's not fair. Most of the world's sitting around waiting for a sick person to just grab the wheel of their life again. Someone or something has to intervene. Who would you rather it be? We need more of you to intervene. We need more families to learn how to do that.
Yeah, and it does kind of sound like you're contradicting yourself a little bit because you're like, interventions aren't a thing, but you're saying, so can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yes, thank you. It is contradicting myself. So I'm like, interventions don't work, but then I'm like, nothing or no one has a chance at recovery unless something intervenes.
Right.
Something has to intervene. So I did contradict myself. I've orchestrated hundreds of interventions. I was really good at it. A lot of families. You've seen it on the show. Even on that show that I mentioned, Intervention on A&E, hundreds of people, if not thousands, performed interventions and were able to get their loved one help. Intervention is a good tool. It's just not a solution. I'm going to continue to say that over and over. There's several types. You know, as I went and got certified to do interventions, you look at them, you kind of study and learn and practice different types. Were you going to say something?
I like that you're saying it's not an event, like the show says. And that is the difference between you being the intervention, is because you aren't going to come and go in their life.
Correct. We're going to get into that. Don't steal my thunder.
Oh.
That's like she just stole the thunder. Just kidding. But let's clarify that because that's critical. I love that we came to that point. So, you know, as I'm studying these different types, there's, the types that are out there, you may have heard them. You may have even looked to some of them as a simple intervention. There's a formal intervention. There's a crisis intervention, which people usually do when things get really bad at the hospital bed or when they're incarcerated.
That's the A&E style.
Yeah. There's the Johnson's model, which was popular for many years where things started to improve. And then there was the family system intervention. This is where they started to kind of realize the importance of the family. Trying to help the people that are around them, like you said, the people that will remain in their life.
Yeah.
And then just a couple years ago, something progressed into what I really enjoyed, which was the CRAFT model. It stood for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. This was educating and giving the family tools, healing the family to best impact this person's addiction. There's one challenge with it, that they focus on the good, and I still think they allow and tolerate things that they never should. But it's okay. It's an amazing model. You can see as humans, we've gotten better, right? Like we used to smoke on airplanes. Then we got smarter. It's just the same with addictions. Over time, we just didn't be like, oh, well, this person's like a castaway. We learned that this person was sick, that they developed a life-threatening illness. Resources got better. Hospitals got better. Doctors became more informed. Facilities opened up. options were available. I hope we continue progressing. It's too slow. That more families start to recognize, like I said, intervention is focused on an event, getting the sick person to a place where they need to be. It's really like getting them to the ER because, that's how critical it is. But it's a process.
Yeah, and I really do. I love this progression that you're pointing out, that it went from not just like the Johnny Cash style, like send them off to this house where they just detox on their own for 2 weeks and they can't talk to anybody, to more sustainable models and then more involved models where the family's educated, like the craft method, which is actually really, really amazing in that it addresses the family structure and their role, not only in the first steps, but in their ongoing recovery. I love that. Now, having said that, why is it that despite these things existing, that only 7% of those with known addictions ever get treatment at all? And then on top of that, why are those that tiny percentage of people that are getting help, why are 85% of them relapsing within the first year? Those are dismal.
Yeah, they're
numbers.
not good. They're not good. And if you go look at the Department of Health and Human Services, you'll see that. They know that the Department of Health and Human Services knows of at least 42 million people who qualify as having a substance use disorder and addiction. Those are the ones they know that have been hospitalized. They've been checked in. They've been arrested. They've been discovered. The majority haven't been discovered. So what that number is, who knows? But only 7% of them are getting help. You know, it's interesting because if you go look that up, and we shared this on a previous podcast, the number one reason why those people didn't get treatment is they didn't think they needed it.
Yeah, they didn't think they needed help.
If your loved one is going down the drain in their addiction and you feel that it's unique that they don't think they have a problem, none of them do. None of them do. So they are the 93% right there. And then why do 85% of them relapse? Because I'm going to share this. This segues right into what our approach is. So I shared with those different intervention type models. The living proof process is, again, this evolution where it's improved. The process of doing this becomes the intervention. But that event is part of an entire process. That event is part of a beautiful understanding, a complete plan. And most of all, what I want to share is, why do 85% of people relapse when they come home? It's because the environment to which they return to is the same. This one's hard. If you are a good family, great family, listening in, you're like, yeah, we've had our challenges, but we've done everything that we could. Like, we're a pretty good family. If your loved one is fortunate to get to a program and come home to your environment and it hasn't changed, they won't make it. I've shared this before too. I was on a podcast. I live in Utah, and former Governor Orrin Hatch had an opioid symposium. I was so privileged to be part of it. He asked a gentleman in there that had won all these awards, had been in the industry, he ran one of the top treatment centers in the country. He said, "Give me the truth, give me the facts now." It was kind of intimidating when he said that. Guy stands up, says, treatment centers are burning buildings. People are jumping out, and we're going to be lucky to catch a few. He said, here's what happens. They come to us, and if they go back home to the same environment, they never recover. If they come here and return home to an environment that's changed just even a bit, those ones have the greatest chance to recover.
And again, I know that's really confusing for people listening that are like, wait a minute, our environment sucks because of them. We don't have anything to change.
They did
need
this.
to change.
Here's the hard pill to swallow. That is the truth. But over time, your loved one's addiction has abused, lied to, manipulated, exhausted, neglected every one of you in different ways. So your family structure, and you especially, whoever it is that's closest to them, the one that's probably listening to this podcast, you have been affected by their addiction. It has changed you. So it isn't fair. They did this. They put all of you in this situation. And you're telling me that we have to get our house in order? That we got to do some work to heal ourselves in order for them to have a chance? That is backwards. Well, let me just tell you why. Why in this evolution of addiction? Nothing plagues our community and destroys more families and homes and individuals than addiction. Nothing else. Combine everything else, all the terrible things that affect people's life, addiction trumps all of it. So why are we not having more success? There is not a one solution to fix this problem. There's layers of problems, but one of the best things we can do, the greatest things that we can do now is for those of you listening, those families who want to help, are trying to figure out how to help. We have to do some work. And when you do, it changes everything.
And I do think if you asked yourself the question, how are the relationships inside of my home? And honestly answer those questions, I think that right there would tell you what needs to be fixed.
We just had, I just left the office where I just completed a family process group. It was a parents group, and there was about 14 people on the call. And I'm going to share a couple examples.
Yeah.
Not right now, quite yet, but I want to explain what the process of living proof is, right? You seek professional help. As a family, you say, okay, no longer are we going to carry this on our own. We're going to get professional help. That's a game changer in its own. How many families are willing to do that? Especially amazing families. Not very many.
Yeah.
They continue to handle this in-house, and addiction continues to torment and manipulate them in a very unique way. Why? Because it's your loved one. You wouldn't be in this situation if it was your niece or nephew or one of your friend's children. But because it is yours, because it is your child, your love and your heart get in the way. You need help. You've got to have tools and a legitimate plan. What does recovery look like? Where do they go? Is there insurance that pays for it? What does it pay for? How long are they there? How long are they after? What do they segue to? You have to have a legitimate plan in place. You need support and constant nourishment. The phrase that I hear the most in this program is, oh my gosh, I needed to hear that again so bad. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, we needed to be reminded of that so bad. You need support, constant nourishment. Hearing from other people what you're trying to do. Hearing from other people that just did what you're trying to do. That constant support.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will lose traction from wherever you gain traction. Like you will fall back into your own ways. You need to unite as a family and redefine what love is. And you have to do all this to be able to do that. You have to stop believing the lies that addiction is trying to teach you out of fear or whatever other tactics is used. All of this requires the family healing, improving.
All of that requires massive processing too.
Massive processing. So real quick, what was shared in group today, So our topic for today was, preparing for the holidays. It was also understanding that once we prepare this gift, which is what our program teaches, to our loved one and we reestablish new boundaries, like it could be kind of scary. So in this group, we were talking about it. Again, like I said, holiday preparation, like how is addiction removing some of those boundaries you have? How's it negatively affecting your family, relationships? Everyone starts sharing. And there were some of the most powerful shares. A woman her family, she's so amazing, talented, beautiful, and her family is amazing. Shared how painful it's been the last 2 years not sending out a family Christmas card. And last year they couldn't, specifically her son was in prison. And she, with all the love and conviction, was able to share with the group, this year we're sending one out. We're sending one out. We're sending pictures of other kids doing things. I'm sending a picture of myself. And for her to be able to be in a place where, although they're still waiting, their son's in the process of recovery now, just started a process of recovery. They are no longer living in this shadow. Someone else just shared that their son was in recovery and they just found an empty bottle in their backpack. She got emotional to share that the miracle for them was that for a long time before they got into the program, she had to take care of all this. Her husband kind of just sat on the side, letting her deal with it. He just couldn't deal with it, which is like for most dads, they can't just deal with it or just can't deal with it. He's the one that stepped in because of everything he's learned, because he had a plan in place, because he was educated about it, because he had support and he had put effort into the program. He was the one that did it. And so for her, Yes, is she devastated this happened to him? She was so relieved that her partner, she said, that might be the miracle. The first miracle we experienced by getting ourselves help and support is it unified us. So this thing that used to drive them apart has now unified. And I could go on and on and on, sharing these stories that people having these profound breakthroughs. Because why? Some of them, their loved ones started the process of recovery. Others, they're waiting. But they are changing. And they're breaking free of all the things that addiction does to torment, lie, and manipulate the people closest to it. So the process that we use here at Living Proof involves intervention. It does. But that alone will never get you the result. You need to understand steps A to Z. Understand what your role is and isn't in their journey. You need to learn how to effectively intervene, but also how to encourage and support them along the way. Again, is this your fault or responsibility? No. They put you here. But if we want to evolve as a society and help a lot more of these people who are going to die from this fatal illness, we've got to educate and support the family. That is the greatest way.
Well, you know, and hearing you talk, and I love hearing you share your experiences because I know how powerful they are. Like, I know how close it's so amazing in these communities because these people come together and they're just sharing their darkest experiences and they don't even know each other. But quickly, as you can imagine, they feel like they're brothers and sisters in there, just lifting each other up, and the power that comes from being able to share in that private little group is the most beautiful thing. It is so healing and incredible. And you just were describing something and you used the same word twice and it really stuck, and it's the torture. These families are tortured. Your family might be feeling that torture. And that is a really good word to use to describe it. And it's mirroring the torture of your addicted loved one. They are being tortured in a very unique and special kind of way. And it's incredible because it's masked, right? They get to enjoy being high and not feel. And that's the only way they're alive, is being able to not feel because of the torture that they're living in. And that just, I want to actually read something, and we've read it before on the podcast, but it's so fitting for this. And it's a quote by Boyd K. Packer, and it is, "Addiction serves the design of the Prince of Darkness, for it disrupts the channel to the Holy Spirit of truth. Addiction has the capacity to disconnect the human will and nullify moral agency." And that is what your loved one is experiencing, which is why we know they cannot choose recovery at this point, which is why we know that you have to be the one to intervene. But I just don't want anyone listening to think that what you are experiencing is anything less. And that's why the support is so, so critical, because you are being tortured as well.
We use the term in the groups all the time, at minimum. At minimum. When people go through a process getting professional support like this for the family, at minimum, we restore peace into the home. Even if your loved one dies from this, even if they never choose recovery. So at minimum, that has to happen. That's why I started this line of work. That's why I created the program the way I did. I said, you know what? I should have died from my addiction. I should have. I did many times. How I survived, I don't know. But had I died from it and known that it would have dismantled and negatively affected my family forever, that cannot happen. We may not be able to save every sick person from the disease of addiction, but we can save every family, to educate them, to give them the tools so they have a real plan in place, to understand the entire journey that's coming up, to know what their role is, to get their house in order and to heal. That, we could do that with every family.
Yeah.
But we've got to look beyond this sick person. The spotlight's been on them for far too long. Rightfully so. Now we need to shed some of that light on the rest of the family and restore sanity and unity to your home. And ironically, by doing that, way more people Let's just even say, like in our program alone, we went through and counted up all the people who have joined. About 50%, just over 50, like barely over 50% of people have got their loved one in recovery. That's a heck of a lot better than 7%. And the rest of them that haven't are just waiting. With a perfectly prepared plan, their home is back in order. Their relationships have healed. They've started nurturing the relationships with their other children, and they're waiting. So everyone is better off.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest piece of this and why, quite frankly, Danny and I have gone on this journey, because interventions are very lucrative. You can make a lot of money being an interventionist, but Danny knew, I don't want to spend time doing this when I know long term this isn't helping people. I want to help people change. I want to help people heal. And that's how we started creating this program, was that goal. And our whole entire program is built on that premise of how do we give this sick person the best chance, and how do we give everyone around them a chance to heal?
Well, that's what, again, at minimum has to happen. So getting someone into treatment is amazing. Intervention is important. It's part of the process. But when a family unites and does this, when they come together with a perfectly prepared plan, support, they're no longer sending requests to their loved one, to that sick person. They're putting in place boundaries. That is what the actual organic intervention is.
Yeah, and can I say, too, the big difference between what you see on A&E, this event, this intervention, and this gift that we talk about in our program, that we base our program on, is that isn't contingent upon them participating, right? Somebody can have an intervention and get thrown into a facility in 24 hours to leave. But when you as a family are united and you understand and you move forward together with a plan, regardless of if they accept it, regardless if they accept it for a time, you know what your role is.
Well, there's such a high rate, and yes, amen. There's such a high rate in the failure when they come home, because they come home, again, like I said, if that environment doesn't change, they never last, but no one knows what to do. What's next? Okay, how do we support them without enabling? That's why we created a process. When she said interventions are lucrative, it's because people are saying, I'll fix your problem. Pay me and I'll come out and we'll get them into treatment. And everyone thinks that it's all better. But what happens, they started realizing that, yeah, they were successful getting people into programs, but then there was just high failure rate after. That's why I think a lot of interventionists, they can't sustain this line of work for too long, because they just see the failure and people constantly disappointed. Even if they have a success, they know it's coming.
Yeah.
So we said, no, we need to do everything. We need to get them in, then we need to get the family healthy. We need to have the family understand what to expect at month 3, 6, 9, and 12. Because if you think it's hard for your loved one to go to treatment, it's so much harder for them to come home.
Oh, yes. Amen.
To leave the comforts of that place, to revisit everything that triggered them, that made them feel exposed and vulnerable and just almost like an allergy to themselves. They need constant nourishment. People are going to have to keep them accountable. So again, intervention is critical, and there's a lot of types, but people focus on this event. That is just one part of the process. Let's continue, folks. Let's continue to evolve to become smarter as a civilization, and let's increase the percentage of people that recover from this terrible illness. And at minimum, let's make sure that all families are restored to sanity.
Yes. So if you were thinking, what does Danny do? Does he do interventions? Could I hire him to do an intervention? No. You cannot.
Well,
but you can join the program and do the intervention yourself, so to speak. Yep. You can become
sustained support. Yeah, it's amazing. So please, at minimum, stop doing this on your own. For all of you that are out there suffering the torture like she described, just stop doing it by yourself. Branch out a little bit more than your bishop or your priest and get some professional help. It will change everything.
Yes. And on that note, I'm going to read the serenity prayer for families. God, grant me the serenity to know that I cannot change other people, the courage to change the person that I can, and the wisdom to know that it is me.
Thank you, guys. Hope you have a great week.
See ya.